Good afternoon, everyone. This is Michael O'Malley here with the severe weather outlook and discussion for March 26, 2020, recorded around 1:17 p.m. Eastern Time. We do have another slight risk today across portions of Kansas and Missouri, and even extending into near the St. Louis region for the potential mainly for some large hail and damaging winds through the overnight hours here, and we'll kind of get into that here in a minute. This marginal risk extends all the way back and through portions of Indiana here, so it could be an active night tonight, but primarily not for a risk of tornadoes. As you can see here, this is the analyzed data coming from 16Z today, so just a little bit a while ago. We do have an area of low pressure here where this L is located, with a trailing cold front back and through Texas and Oklahoma, and also a bit of a warm front you can see extending to the south mainly of that, and kind of curving back in through northern Arkansas at this point in time, usually where the higher dew points are at for this time of year. You can see though we do have a pretty good moisture advection coming off of the southern plains and the southern Gulf of Mexico, southern Texas regions. We do have a pretty good moisture advection, but still for this area later today across portions of the Missouri and Illinois area, it is still not going to generally provide for a good severe weather potential in terms of tornadoes. This track of low pressure is expected to mainly head off towards the north and east here over the next coming hours. This will continue to provide a little bit of the moisture increase throughout the day today, but not much. We can take here a look at the actual observed data, and you can see pretty much right where the fronts are located, this low pressure here with the trailing warm front positioned here, and the trailing cold front roughly positioned right around in here. You can see there is a lot of moisture advection to the south. We do have strong dew points up in the mid-70s, and you can actually see some of the mid-70s that are kind of creeping in here across the south, and the 60s down here. For the most part, though, that moisture advection is not really continuing that far to the north. And you can see actually our dew points are barely at 55 degrees here in the vicinity of the warm front, and out across portions of Illinois, they are in the upper mid to lower 50s actually. So providing some clarity for the severe weather event today. Usually this would be a setup for some or for some substantial hail events, but not so much of a tornado event. You can definitely see the counterclockwise circulation here associated with that low pressure system, and that will continue to head off towards the north and east throughout the day today. Taking a look at the observed soundings, this is from 12Z at Fort Worth. You can certainly see that 68 dew point there over 69 temperature, but very, very, very limited in terms of the amount of instability we have. Only about 498 in the surface. Most unstable is only about near 600, but you can see there is going to be capping problems. So no storms today down in Texas, certainly, and that would be pretty consistent with the Storm Prediction Center forecast. Expecting storms mainly north of the I-35 corridor, north of Oklahoma City and El Reno regions. So this would primarily be a threat for Kansas City, Missouri, Topeka, Kansas, on through St. Louis for the more substantial risk for severe weather today. If we jump over towards the Oklahoma, this is Norman. This is the Norman sounding 12Z. You can see a large temperature dew point spread here, 67 over 59. Certainly more of a stout elevated mix layer today across portions of Oklahoma, and that will translate well tomorrow, or decently tomorrow, for tomorrow's severe weather event across eastern portions of Oklahoma. So that will be something that I kind of keep an eye on. But you can certainly see again a large capping with pretty much no instability at all. Photographs, again, not overly impressive, but that is to be expected for this time of the season. Go to Topeka, Kansas, closer in the way of temperature dew point spreads, but the dew point is only at 50, so you've noticed we've lost a lot of the dew points going from Fort Worth all the way to Topeka, Kansas. We've lost the majority of the dew points that were up in the 60s there in Dallas. So certainly Dallas-Fort Worth region. So Certainly we've lost a lot of the dew point sitting at 50, and pretty much with no elevated mixed layer, just a little hint of it here between 5 to 6 kilometers or so, but pretty much a moist profile all the way around. Just a slight elevated mixed layer here, but pretty much we are going to be, our inflow parcels are going to be above the surface, and you can see that here. That is going to be above surface for our inflow parcels. So, of course, this is 12Z, we'll wait on the 18Z soundings. And at Springfield today, we do have 51 dew point over 53 temperature. A little bit more of a stout elevated mixed layer coming in here between the 3 and 6 kilometer regions. There is a little bit more of elevated instability. You can see here, we can go ahead and trace this. There is a little bit more in the way of elevated instability, and this will provide the way for some elevated convection throughout the day today and in through tonight for some pretty large hail that could set up to follow. So taking a look here, this is the NAM forecast valid for 15Z today, so roughly about 2 hours ago or so. You can certainly see the moisture returns here within that low pressure that's just off the screen right there, that is going to set up nicely for some convection later today across this region. And you can really see throughout the day today that moisture advection continues. We end up, according to the NAM, with dew points up in the lower 70s here, spreading in through portions of Oklahoma and moving throughout the night tonight. The higher dew points remain across portions of Oklahoma. We're getting that nice return flow, and you notice what's starting to happen out here. We got somewhat of a dry line like future starting to set up across the board, potentially a cold front or dry line. That looks more like of a dry line to me, probably with a warm frontal system, probably something like that. So that's kind of the setup there. So we are looking potentially at somewhat of a low back here with a cold front or warm front just to the north of that, like so. So it's going to be very interesting to see the setup for tomorrow. The Storm Prediction Center is going with a 5% tornado risk across portions of northern Oklahoma and southeastern Kansas for tomorrow, and a 2% risk across portions of the I-35 corridor, including Oklahoma City and El Reno, going through portions of Kansas, Missouri, and extreme northwestern Arkansas for tomorrow night. And you can see there is a caveat to this, and we will kind of roll out to the convective reflectivity coming off of the 12Z HER. You do notice that there is little in the way of actual convection, and if we actually see why, this is around time where the storms would be going here. You do notice that there is a little bit of a capping inversion here, very weak elevated mixed layer, if any, and that will provide the way for storms to not be able to really form. This is a pretty easy cap to break. However, look at these shear vectors, and we do not really have any way in the way of shear, so it is not a really good curved photograph that you would like to see for significant severe weather events for this time of the year. So again, throughout the night tonight, there could be some large hail, generally from Topeka, Kansas, Kansas City, Missouri, through St. Louis, but the tornado potential is very slim to none. Again, with these weak dew points that are up in this region, providing the way for very little in the way of actual tornado potential. And tomorrow we could see some severe storms, but it is very dependent on how this capping inversion works, and if we can get a decent elevated mixed layer and better shear, we could amplify that tornado threat again. The latest thinking right now is that there could be somewhat of a warm front boundary positioned across portions of northern Oklahoma with a trailing cold front or dry line like feature that might be able to initiate a couple of thunderstorms across portions of Oklahoma as they continue off to the north in a relatively better environment across this warm frontal sector. So we will just kind of have to see how that all plays out here over the coming days. I will be back tomorrow with another severe weather outlook and discussion. Thank you for tuning in, and be safe.